and family. But lately, they're the party of shotguns and explosions. Some of you listening have voted Republican for years, but now you feel like no one's speaking for you. Well, I want to speak for you. Business wanted transit expansion in Cobb County. Their employees need a way to get to work. But the incumbent was one of just 6 senators who voted against this year's transit expansion bill. Families are suffering from lack of access to medical marijuana. They're being torn apart by opioid overdoses. Opioid overdoses are killing people, and those deaths could be reduced by legalizing marijuana. Again, the incumbent voted against medical marijuana time and again. I want my kids to grow up in a better Georgia, where politics are based on respect, where government just works. You don't have to worry about what every scandal comes up every day. I'm Andy Clark. I'm running for Senate District 37, and I hope to earn your vote on November 6th.
I appreciate your attention and the opportunity of being here. I offer you 20 years of an open record of public service. My votes are recorded. My positions are recorded. I'm not a stranger to Cobb County, nor am I a stranger to a lot of you. If the people in District 37 are willing to re-elect me, I'll make them 7 promises that I'll give them. I'll work just as hard as I know how to and just as good as I know how to. I'll give you an honest answer. I will put my efforts into doing absolutely the best job I know how to do. I will make thoughtful decisions, and I'll come up with logical solutions. I won't be rushed into making a decision until I am convinced it'll work. I'll give you accessibility, and I'll also give you conservative representation. I did vote against the transit bill because it provided for a transit district and the entire county would be responsible for it. I'm not convinced that fixed guideway transit is the solution to our problems because that's technology that's 180 years old and does not have the flexibility we need. And I think an outer perimeter is the solution to most of our traffic problems today. If you vote for me, I'd be honored to serve you. God bless you.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. Democracy works when we're all engaged. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching. But we need in Georgia a 2-party system. We don't just need a 1-party system of the Republicans. We need the Democrats and the Republicans together to work together. I am not a career politician. I am a mother, a wife, a trial attorney who stepped up and is trying to right the wrongs in the state Senate and in the state of Georgia. As an attorney, I understand the laws, I understand the Constitution, and I would be an asset in the state Senate. I have common sense and I have compassion. I will also represent your values, and I will fight for you in the Senate to create jobs and to improve our health care, to protect our public education and our environment. And words that I live by: do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. And I ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
I'm honored to work full-time on behalf of my district and to try to bring a voice of reason to state government. Our state government is fragmented and it needs a business-like approach. Believe it or not, we do work together on issues down there. But my priorities, I've already mentioned healthcare and insurance issues. I've spent more than 30 years on the front lines. I know that issue upside down, and I'm hoping to be there long enough to make a difference there. I'm also very concerned about public safety, especially school safety and disaster preparedness. And I want to look out for our military and veterans. We've got Dobbins Air Reserve Base right across the street. We need to be sure that it's protected and that Georgia's a veteran-friendly state so that we can retain those very valuable individuals in our workforce. So I would ask you for your support to allow me to continue my positive style of leadership. Thank you.
Thank you for having us here tonight. like Kay, I came in a special election, so this was for both of us, it was our first session, and we were actually suite mates up at the Capitol. And I'm a Democrat. And one of why that's important is because the Republicans have had the supermajority up there for over a decade. And what does that mean? Well, that meant they didn't even have to follow their own rules. And it meant that they could kind of just push through whatever they wanted and really not talk to folks on the other side. And so we've got to start talking to each other. I mean, we've got to come together and try to come up with the best solutions that we possibly can for the people of the state of Georgia. And in terms of, I voted for the transit bill, and respectfully, Senator Tippins, the transit districts, the people in the transit districts would just pay for them. And the people in my district want transit in terms of Cobb. We don't want to be left behind. I humbly ask for your vote. You will find no one that will work harder or smarter for you. And at the end of the day, I am all about reaching across lines and working with people if, in fact, that's the best thing to do.
All right, well, I want to thank you all for coming and for taking these questions. And this concludes the Senate portion of our forum tonight. So you're excused if you want to, or you can stay where you are. And we will turn our attention to the candidates who are here for the Cobb County Commission seat. So I want to welcome you both here, and I guess you heard the rules that we stated earlier, and that is that you get a 1-minute introductory statement, and then we will take the questions from the audience and ask you questions, and you each get a minute to answer all the questions. So would you like to start? You have a question?
Can we take a minute to, if the room clears, for the room to clear a little, or no?
Well,
Um,
we
it's a lot of
need
commotion.
to.
Don't you
Is
think?
that what you want?
Okay.
I think people get to it pretty quickly. I think people get to it pretty quickly.
Okay.
But it was a whole hour, and there are
I
people who
know.
have trouble paying attention for an entire hour, let alone 2.
Oh, they turned on our mic. See,
Good evening. We're back with the Cobb Commission candidates for this rest of the candidate forum for 2018. So, and as I was saying before, you'll each have 1 minute to make an introductory statement, and then we'll take the questions from the audience. Okay, Joanne Burrell, would you like to start?
sure. Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having this tonight. And also, I'd like to give a shout out to Cobb TV for working overtime tonight to televise this, and it will be recorded as well. I have lived in Cobb for 23 years, and I'm married to my #1 supporter who is here tonight. And we have 2 children and 3 wonderful grandchildren. As your District 3 Commissioner for the past 8 years, I bring a wealth of institutional knowledge and experience to the table, and I love this county. I've worked tirelessly for the citizens of this county in this position, and I'm fully committed to my district and the county. I do not work outside of the county, and this is my full-time job, even though it's considered a part-time job. And I would like to continue representing you as your District 3 Commissioner for the next 4 years to move this county forward. My record speaks for itself. I'm honest, fair, and I listen and respond to all, and I'm inclusive of all walks of life. When you sit in the seat, it doesn't matter what race or color or creed or party you're affiliated with. You represent all, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, Caroline Holka.
So, hi, my name is Caroline Holko. Unlike a lot of people who have been on the stage here, I cannot claim to be a lifelong resident of Cobb County. However, I think it does speak brilliantly of Cobb County that I chose to live here. Like, we moved here on purpose. We bought our home in 2008. I'm married to my college sweetheart. I can't quite claim he's my high school sweetheart, but he was my college sweetheart. We have 2 kids, and we live right out in East Cobb. And the thing that motivated me to get involved in the county commission race is something my grandmother used to tell me when I was very small. She would say, you have to think globally, but act locally. And what could possibly be more local than the county commission? The decisions that are made right here in this room are decisions that affect every aspect of the lives of the citizens of Cobb County. I have 3 main priorities on my platform, and that is transit. I do believe that Cobb deserves transit, robust, meaningful transit, not just transit for show, not just a couple of bus lines that don't go anywhere that nobody wants to go. I believe that we could absolutely improve our recycling options. One of the questions I get asked the most often is about why we don't have curbside glass recycling anymore, but they do in Alpharetta. I know comparison is the thief of joy, but sometimes you have to be aware of what's going on around you to know even what the right question to ask. And diversity. I do believe that it is past time for the Board of Commissioners to include a Diversity and Human Rights Council. We have advisory councils for every topic under the sun, for parks, animal control, code enforcement. Why are we not making diversity and human rights front and center in the conversation about what is going on in the county right now? I think that we all have something to offer. I think that this is the first time in a long time that there's even been a challenger in this seat. And I just think that it's time to do things differently. And I think that it's time that the people of Cobb County had choices, and this year's a banner year for choices in Cobb County.
Okay, thank you both. Now moving on to the questions that we have from the audience. The first question, it's about the stadium. First, Joanne, if you were back to that Tim Lee meeting where you said yes to the Braves deal, would you do anything differently? And Caroline, what would you have done, and how would you have voted?
Would you like me to start, or would you like Ms. Burrell to start?
Either way. You want to start? Okay. Go ahead.
The first time that Tim Lee would have approached me outside of a quorum, I would have shut him down immediately. That is, we have quorums for a reason. We have rules and procedures for a reason, and that is to protect the citizens of Cobb County. When the initial vote was passed, I absolutely would not have voted for that.
Go ahead.
Okay, can you repeat my part of the question?
If you were back to that Tim Lee meeting where you said yes to the Braves deal, what would you do differently?
Okay.
The rest of the question is if the Braves deal had come up, if she was in office, how she would have voted.
So the Board of Commissioners voted to bring the Braves to Cobb County in 2013. The bonds that were issued were a revenue-producing bond, not an obligatory bond. So a referendum was not required. We did have several town hall meetings prior to the vote. It was a narrow window of time, but in a business decision like that, really, I don't see any other way it could have happened. I do know that there are people that are still upset, and I understand that they feel they didn't get a voice by not having a referendum. but I can't say that I regret my decision. We've had several reports in the last year that show the revenue that is coming in for the county and the schools have no vested interest in the bonds for the Braves. However, the revenue that is coming in from the Battery and the stadium and the businesses that are and restaurants and retail that are popping up around the Cumberland area are bringing in over $19 million a year in property taxes. So I can't say that I regret my vote. I think that would be my answer.
Okay, the next question is kind of a follow-up. It is, would you be in favor of renegotiating this stadium deal? Joanne, would you like to start?
As far as some of the things in addition to the bond is pretty much what it is. And there are a couple of other things that, yes, I would be very interested in renegotiating as far as the public safety police that we provide. We have capped that, so we are working towards renegotiating things like that. The maintenance agreement that came with the bonds and the MOU and memorandum of agreement are also capped and at a set amount. But yes, I would definitely consider that, yes.
Okay. Would you like to respond?
Yes, actually, I would like to see the entire contract laid bare in front of the public with a team of lawyers. The county does have some excellent lawyers on staff, and I'm sure they would love to go through and look for things that could be renegotiated for the betterment of the citizens of Cobb County, and so that we don't get surprises like we got on the September 11th board meeting when they demanded secret mediation, private mediation, and that was a clause in the contract. And originally they were asking for $5 million. Now, we did come out ahead in the end. I think they're actually paying us something to the order of 1.3, and we paid them $380 for an invoice that I don't know if the actual invoice was ever produced. They did bring a spreadsheet though, which is super important. So I would like to see it publicly reviewed, and I would like members of the public to have an opportunity to see what's in there. There may be some things that can't be changed because it is a contract and it is signed, but I think we would be better able to plan for our future if we knew what was coming down the pike.
If I may
Go ahead.
respond to that. First of all, the dispute over the water fees and the $4.5 million that the Braves claimed the county owed, it's in the contract that any disputes have to go to mediation. And it's not that they're secret, but anytime you're in litigation, it's discussed and reserved for executive session. It is not public when you're in the mediation or in the lawsuit dispute. So, but as far as what the contract says, it's open records. I mean, we've been sued over it several times, and anybody can get access through open records of what the contract says and what we're bound by. And we also have hired outside counsel to visit these disputes and questions to give us a legal opinion outside of our own county attorney.
Okay, since she had a
So
response.
that we're on common ground.
Did you want to follow up with another statement about that?
I'm very glad to hear that some steps are being taken to really look very deeply at these issues. But I still feel like some public education and input from the public is lacking in the process. And that's really at the heart of it. transparency, even if there are obviously things that have to be covered under executive session because, well, that's what executive session is for. But afterwards, I do feel like people who are elected to serve the public have a clear obligation to be super extra transparent. And like, we're not talking about me not telling my kids that we're going to Disney World. Like, we're talking about people's actual money that we're entrusted with.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. What will be your criteria in deciding on zoning issues?
Do you want me to go first? Or
Sure.
are you directing it to either one?
Whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
Okay. The first thing I do when I get a zoning case in my district is I look at the land use, I look at the surrounding property to see what it's zoned, and if this proposed zoning is comparable to that. I look at any variances that they have requested as far as impervious surface, setbacks, all of that. And I do a site visit to get to know the lay of the land and the surrounding area. And I meet with the neighbors, the developers or their attorneys that represent them, and try to bring both sides together, hear each side's issues and what they're asking for, and try to get to a point where it is compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods, whether it's residential or commercial businesses, and try to get a common ground where you're not going to always agree. There are concessions on both sides, and you may have to meet in the middle, but you have to look at if it's appropriate for that area and if it meets all the requirements for land use and zoning setbacks and everything included.
So just so that I'm clear, the question is how I would decide zoning cases as a commissioner. One of the first things, the staff puts together lovely documents detailing why they recommend or do not recommend something. There are a number of very active civic groups that frequently come to meetings to make public comments. And I'm getting to recognize some of those names. I guess first thing when I would receive an application is probably the first thing I would do if I were elected commissioner is to meet with some of those active civic associations with the information from the staff to talk about how you live in this community. How do you think this is going to affect you? I've found the staff recommendations often to be quite detailed, and people are generally pretty clear if they're not happy about something like the Mountain View Shopping Center, which was going to be a giant storage unit. Now it's going to be a giant storage unit and a Publix. So that started in 2017, and then in February was right around the time that I decided to get involved. And that particular case, which is in my neighborhood, which affects me. So community input. I think there are a lot of, East Cobb is lucky that we have a lot of very, very informed and engaged community groups, and I doubt very seriously that they would let me get away with bad decisions.
All right, moving on to next question. What about zombie houses? How would you address this issue? Do you feel landlords who let their property depreciate should be fined more than individual property owners?
Zombie.
As zombie houses
Is
in
that renters
quotation
or
marks.
what?
So unoccupied? Okay. Would you like to start?
Sure. Before I get into this, if I may just respond to Ms. Holko's, the storage facility at the Mountain View Shopping Center is just one of many retail restaurants and a grocery store that will be in there. It's not the whole shopping center as it was misrepresented in the media. And also, that storage unit had no variances and was a 5-0 vote, approved by this board. And I do look at that as well as far as variances very closely. Zombie houses, if they're vacant and there's an owner somewhere, even if it's in foreclosure and a bank owns it, we can send code enforcement out there if the grass is too high or there's trash in the yard or whatever, and they can be cited and have to clean it up and remediate it. If that's what I wasn't real clear on the question.
The
Is that-
question was also, should they be more strictly fined than individual owners?
Well, it depends on what their violations are. If they have several violations, they would be fined for each one. And then, they do have a cure period of like 10 days for certain violations or a week, depending on what it is, that they have to come into compliance. And then if they don't come into compliance within their allotted time frame, then they would go to magistrate court and a judge could give them a stiffer penalty or fine.
Okay. Would you like to respond?
I would like to see why exactly a house became a zombie house. Are we talking about a situation where someone is elderly and became ill and is no longer able to maintain the property? I would argue for compassion in that case. If we're talking about somebody who is an absentee landlord and has chosen to let the property fall into disrepair, then I could see supporting a stricter fine for someone who is allowing a property to fall into disrepair and not making efforts to remediate that property. Recently I guess it's not that recently, it was about 2 years ago, there was a person in my neighborhood who fell ill and was unable to maintain their property. And they had to, they ended up having to sell. I think the bank took care of it. But it was a tragedy, and I would hate to see someone who's already experiencing a tragedy have financial troubles piled on top of that. But if you're talking about a landlord who's like, whatever, let the grass grow, I don't care. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. So yeah, I guess case by case, I would argue for a balance of compassion and responsibility.
Okay, next question. 55 and up communities are seriously impacting public school funding due